Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Pei Amud Beis 80b of Maseches Kiddushin. We're starting from the Mishnah 8 lines down the page, and the Mishnah, the Gemara, now begins to discuss the laws of Yichud, the laws regarding when a man and a woman can be secluded together, or more than one man, more than one woman, and when not. So the Mishnah says, Lo yisyachid adam mishtei nashim. A man is not allowed to be secluded with two women. Certainly not with one, but even two is forbidden. Aval isha achas misyachedes im shnei anashim. But one woman is allowed to be secluded with two men. So again, by secluded we mean they are in the same house together with nobody else there, or the same room with nobody else who has access. We'll see more, but so one man with two women is not allowed. One woman with two men is allowed. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Af ish echad misyached im shtei nashim. So Rabbi Shimon says, and there's a bit of a question of how to read the Mishnah exactly, how it's supposed to read, but we'll read it like this. This is how Tosfos reads it. Reb Shimon says that he argues and says, no, a man is allowed to be with two women. And again, the concern here is that if a man and a woman are alone together, it might lead to them having relations. Right? We're obviously not talking about a man with his wife. We mean a man with a woman that he's not allowed to have relations with. So the Tanna Kama, the first opinion, held that even if it's one man and two women, we still have a concern there that he might have relations with both of them. The Gemara will talk about it a little bit. And Rabbi Shimon comes and argues and says that no, it's okay. One man with two women is okay. We're not afraid then that he'll have relations with them because they won't both do it and one won't do it in front of the other, etc. But Bisman, fine. So then, and again, there's a question of how to read this. Tosfos has the word uvizman for the next part. Uvizman she'ishto imo, and if his wife is there, so then yashin imahim bepundaki ibnei she'isha mishamarto. So then everybody would agree he could even stay with them in the same inn. If his wife is there, we mean sleep in the same room even. As long as his wife is there, so then she will guard him. He won't sin. He won't succumb to any temptation because his wife is there. And this would be even if there's only one other woman there. But as long as his wife is there, then it's okay. Misyachid adam im imo ve'im bito. Mishnah says a man is allowed to be secluded with his mother or with his daughter, even though he's not allowed to have relations with them. But we're not concerned that they will come to do that. V'yashing imayim b'kiru basar. And he's even allowed to sleep with them with flesh touching. And this is, as we'll see in a moment, when one is a child and one is an adult. But once they get bigger, zu yeshena b'ksusa, v'zeh yashen b'ksusa, so then she would have to be covered, and he would have to be covered. They would have to be clothed. But if one of them is a little child, so then the halacha allows for the child to sleep with a parent, even if their flesh is touching, and so it gives both ways. When it says adam im imo, a man with his mother really means a child, a boy with his mother, or a man with his daughter. As long as they're still young, it doesn't say exactly until what age. But once they get a bit older, so then they would have to be wearing clothing. Okay. So the Gemara asks on the beginning of the Mishnah. The beginning of the Mishnah said that one man with two women is forbidden, according to Tanna Kama, but one woman with two men is permitted. We're not afraid that they're going to sin in that case. Ask the Gemara, my time, what's the reason? Why is it that one man with two women is forbidden? So Tana Eliyahu, they talk in the base medrash of Eliyahu, Hoil v'nashim daitan kalos alein. Because women are of lighter mind. And what that means is they will more easily be seduced by this man. And they might both be seduced by him and cover up and for each other. And therefore, we are more concerned that they will come to sin because they might both be seduced and both cover it up and be willing to do it because they'll both not talk about it, and so one man with two women is forbidden, but two women, but one woman with two men, we're not afraid that both men will succumb to sin, even if one might, the other he won't because he's embarrassed of the other one, and they're not going to do it together in cahoots. Okay, the Gemara asks, Mina hani mili. From where do we know? From where do we know this concern of yichud? What is the source? So the Gemara, the source it's going to bring is not really an explicit source. It's just what it's going to call a remez. It's really a hint. And again, there's different parts of yichud. What's deraisa, what's Torah law, what's d'Rabbanan, what was enacted later. But it seems that yichud with let's say a married woman, a man to be secluded with another woman who's already married, that we assume to be Torah law. It's not explicit in the Torah, but I guess it's a halacha Moshe. You see, the Gemara is asking is there a remez somewhere? Is it hinted to somewhere? So says the Gemara the following. It says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, remez liyichud min haTorah minayin. Where is there a remez? Where is there a hint to the idea of yichud? So it says, Shenemar, as it says, Ki yisischa achicha b'animecha. So it quotes a pasuk that's talking about where somebody causes someone else to go astray. And the way the pasuk says it is, if your brother, the son of your mother, causes you to go astray, and he says, let's go worship idols, or something like that, and it specifically says, your brother who's the son of your mother. Ask the Gemara, V'chi ben eim mesis ben av eino mesis? Is there a reason why it specifically talked about a brother from the mother, that the brother from the mother is going to be the one to entice somebody else to stray and go worship idols, but not a brother from the father? Why does it say your brother from your mother? So rather what it's coming is it's hinting to you an idea. Ben misyached imo ve'asr lisyached mikol harayos shebatorah. What it's hinting to is the idea that a boy spends time with his mother, and that's okay. Meaning it calls him the son of his mother to hint that he would spend time with his mother, and even in seclusion, and that's okay. And by inference, we could say that's okay, but other seclusions of other people would not be okay. So again, the way it says it is, it's to tell you, ben misyached imimo, a son can have yichud, can be secluded with his mother, v'asr lisyached mikol harayos shebatorah, but he cannot be misyached, even though a man and his mother are forbidden to each other, they can't marry each other, but still we see that they're allowed to be together, meaning to spend time together in seclusion. So, and what it's hinting to is they can do it, but other arayos, other forbidden relationships, a man would not be allowed to be secluded with. Okay, but says the Gemara, that's a nice remez, a nice hint, but obviously that's not what the pasuk actually is talking about. The pasuk is talking about nothing to do with yichud. So, pashte dekra b'mai ksiv. What is the simple understanding of the pasuk? Meaning, on a most basic level, though, we still have our original question. Why does it say the son of your mother who is going to cause you to go astray, not the son of your father? So, Amar Abaye says, Lo mi bayi kamar. It's telling you the bigger chiddush, the bigger novelty. It's like the style of it doesn't need to even tell me the son of your father. Meaning, Lo mi bayi ben av. There's no question the son of your father. I mean, let's say a guy has a brother from the father, not from the mother. So, or also from the mother. It doesn't really matter for this point. The point is, a brother from the father, they share an inheritance. And so, they might dislike each other for that reason, because they have to share with the other one the inheritance. So, there, lo mi bayi, there's no question there that a brother from the father might despise his brother. And he might give him bad advice and lead him astray. The pasuk didn't need to mention that. But it's telling you that even the son of a mother that he doesn't hate him. He's not going to deliberately cause him to go astray because there's no money on the line in terms of their relationship. Because the inheritance, they don't inherit their mother in the first place. She doesn't have, her estate would go, if she has anything to go to her, but usually her estate would belong to the husband. If she had her own possession, so then it might go back to her family. I can't remember actually. Might depend on the setup, but it's not the children that are going to inherit her. They're not fighting over an estate from her. So so you might think that you just listen to your brother, he loves you, and don't suspect him of leading you astray. Kamash Malan comes the Torah and tells us to watch out if you have a brother, even from the mother, a brother who loves you and says, let's go worship idols, do not listen to him. Okay. So that's where we have a remez, we have a hint to the idea of yichud at least, and now the Gemara explores the halachos more. Says the Gemara, Nema Masdisin Deloka Abashal. Let's suggest that our Mishnah is not in accordance with Abashal. The time because we're learning a brisa. Kol shloshim yom. If a baby passes away in its first 30 days of life, so then yotze bechek. It's brought out. It's just carried. It's not brought on a bed or a coffin. It's carried out. V'nikvar, and it's buried. And it can be done be'isha achas u'shnei anashim, with just one woman there, probably the mother, and two men, and that suffices. We don't require like an entire entourage like we would try for anyone over 30 days old who passes. Under 30 days, it's less of a funeral procession. One woman and two men. Aval, lo beish echad ushtei nashim. But not one man and two women. So that sounds like our Mishnah, because again, they're going out to outside the city to a secluded place to bury the child. That's where the cemeteries were. And so it says, kind of like our Mishnah, that you can go with one woman and two men, but not with one man and two women. But Abba Shal says, Af b'ishechad ushtei nashim. You could even go with one man and two women. So says the Gemara, it seems that our Mishnah does not fit in accordance with Abba Shal, because our Mishnah says that there's yichud if it's one man and two women. And Abba Shal is saying that it's okay for one man and two women to go to bury the child. So says the Gemara, Abba Shal. No, it could be that our Mishnah will even agree to Abba Shal. Bishas aninos taver yitzrei, because they're a time of aninos, when they're dealing with the burial of the dead. So then in Onain, when they're burying the dead, a person's yetzer, their inclination is broken, meaning they are not. We're not afraid that at that moment they're going to succumb to temptation. The reason why Abba Shal could agree to our Mishnah could agree to Abba Shal, and normally a man cannot seclude himself with two women. But when it comes to burying the dead, so there we're not concerned that they're going to sin in this way, and therefore it's okay for a man to go with two women even to a secluded area. V'Rabbanan. So then why does the first opinion in that brisa hold that they can't? What's the concern? Sabri like Rabbi Yitzchak. The Rabbanan must hold like Rabbi Yitzchak. The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. That Rabbi Yitzchak said, he quoted a pasuk in Eicha. It says, Mayis onein adam chai gavar al chatav. Simple reading would be like, if a person is alive, what do they have to complain about? Have they overcome all their sins? And yet they're alive. But the Gemara is darshing, and the Gemara is reading it to mean afilu b'shas aninuso shel adam. It's telling you that even when a person is ba'niyadus, even when a person is in mourning, yitzro miskaber olav, his yitzer's inclination can still get the better of him. And the way, as Rashi explains, the way to read the pasuk is Mayis Onen Adam Chai. What does it help that a person is misonen, that he's in mourning? He's Adam Chai. He's alive. So Gabra Chatav, he has to fight. He has to overcome his sin still. Meaning there's still temptation, and the person still has to fight even in a moment like that, and overcome. And therefore the Rabbanan, the first opinion of that brayso, hold that even now, even when they're going to bury the dead, the laws of Yichud still apply normally, and you can't have one man and two women go. The Abba Shaul will respond and say regarding that pasuk, Ki ksiv hahu, that pasuk is b'misrayim al midosav ksiv. It's a person who is complaining about what happened to him. And Hachikamer, kind of like we explained before, this is what it's saying, Ma Yisrael al midosav. Why is he complaining about what happened to him? What does he have to complain about? V'chigavar al chatav. Did he overcome all his sins? Dayo chayiv nasati lo. Hashem says, it's enough, I gave you life. Stop complaining. Have you, you don't like your life? Well, are you deserving of better? Have you overcome all your sins? Be happy that you are alive. That's how Abba Shaul will read that pasuk, not like the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say back, and on a more practical level, they say, Ki ahu ma'aseh dayitzada va'uvda ve'afikte. They say, there's still a concern because there's that story with that woman, that something happened and they brought her out. Now the Gemara doesn't tell us what the story is, but Rashi tells us that there's a story where even though somebody was Be'aninos, even though somebody was an Onain, they still succumb to sin. And the story that Rashi quotes is that there was a woman who, her baby, she had I guess it was her baby, the baby was alive, and she wanted to sin with a man. So they pretended that they were going to bury the dead, and they then sinned. And so, according to that reading, there's a concern that not when the person's actually dead, but when they're actually mourning, but that they could pretend to be mourning and really be going to sin, and that's why we can't allow seclusion even in that case. That's one story that Rashi brings. Tosfos brings a different story from Rabbeinu Hananel. The story that he brings is there was a woman who was crying over her husband's burial, her husband's death. She was in the cemetery, and there was another man there, and he was guarding a person who had been hung, and in the meanwhile, so he was supposed to guard for the king this man that had been hung. I think he was dead. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. That's what it sounds like, at least. And so you have this woman. She's in the cemetery. She's crying over her husband. There's a man. He's guarding a body. And the man came, the guard, and he seduced the woman, and she agreed. And when the guard went back to the man he was guarding, again, I don't know if it was a live person or a dead person, the body was gone, and he was very upset because he was supposed to guard the body for the king. So the woman said, "Don't worry, I have a plan. Let's exhume my husband's body, and you'll hang that." And that's what they did. And you see that even when a woman is in mourning, she could still succumb to sin. That was the story that Rabbeinu Hananel quotes. So quite a frightening story. Again, she was first mourning for her husband, and then she sinned. So that's the Rabbanan. They say, look, we have kind of a living proof that these things happen. Okay. The Gemara now goes on and quotes the next part of the Mishnah, which said that an Isha Achas, one woman, is allowed to be secluded with two men or more, because there we're not concerned. One, that's a concern, but once there's two men, we're not afraid that they'll both sin, we're not afraid that one will sin in front of the other, so that's okay. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav, Lo shanu elo b'ksherim. That halacha is only true for ksherim, people who are morally upright. Aval beprutzim, but those who are parts, they are immoral, so then afilu be'asar anami lo. Then it will be forbidden even with 10 men. So even 10, well, it doesn't matter how many men. Meaning if the woman would know that she's amongst men that are immoral, then even if it's more than 2 men, it's forbidden, 2 or more men, it's forbidden for her to be there. Havamaisa, and the Gemara says that happened once. There were 10 men who brought a woman out on a bed, and they were all prutzim, and she was a married woman, and I think she wasn't forced. She was agreeable, and they all had relations with her. So we see again, if they're prutzim, doesn't matter how many men. If they're immoral, it doesn't matter. Rav Yosef said Teda. He says, I'll kind of prove this to you that once they're immoral, it doesn't really matter. You have 10 thieves gathered together and they steal like a beam or something. They steal something heavy together. They're not embarrassed of each other. So similarly, if they're immoral and they think it's okay, they have no qualms about committing such a sin, then they'll all do it, and therefore there's a concern for her to have yichud with those men. Again, even if she doesn't know that that's what they intend, but if they are immoral in the first place, so then it would be forbidden for her to be amongst them. Says the Gemara, Nema Misayele. Perhaps we can bring a proof to this statement of Rav that once they are psulim, once they are prutzim, there's no limit on yichud. 2 or more is still yichud. Because of the following. It says that when a sota is being brought to the Beis HaMikdash to drink the sota waters, so again, a sota is a woman who secluded herself with a man. Her husband warned her not to do it again, and she did it again, and now there's a suspicion that she committed a sin with that man, and the husband brings her to the Beis HaMikdash, she drinks the waters of the sota, and that's supposed to tell us if she in fact sinned or not. So when he's bringing his wife to the Beis HaMikdash, it says, we send 2 Talmid Chachamim along, sort of as guards, out of concern the husband might have relations with his wife on the way, because he's not allowed to have relations, and if he does, so first of all, she's forbidden to him right now because she might have committed adultery, and that would make her forbidden to her husband. And if they would have relations, then the waters of the sota will no longer work. If the husband has had relations with her in between, then the waters of the sota don't work. So we give them 2 Talmidei Chachamim to sort of guard their behavior. And Talmidei Chachamim in, but says the Gemara, Talmidei Chachamim yes, in Shida Almi Almalo. Others not, meaning because if they were prutzim, if they're immoral, so then it wouldn't help. That's the implication. Why are we sending Talmidei Chachamim specifically? It must be because to send people who are immoral would be still yichud, even though there's 2 of them. So we seem to have a proof that even when there's 2 men, if they're prutzim, so then it's still a problem. So says the Gemara, no, shani Talmidei Chachamim diyadi lasriyebe. There's a different reason we send Talmidei Chachamim. It's not necessarily a proof that other people could potentially be a problem of yichud. It might be a different benefit, different reason to send Talmidei Chachamim, and that is because they know how to warn the husband, meaning they have to be able to tell him the halachos and how it works, and they have to tell him that if you have relations with your wife, the waters of the sota will no longer work, and therefore we want knowledgeable people along with them to be able to tell them that. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Lo shanu elo be'ir. So that which we say that it's okay for a woman to be with 2 men, secluded with 2 men, that's only in the city. Aval baderech, but if they're traveling on the way, ad sheyiyu shlosha, you need 3 men. Why? Shema yitzarech ech me'em lahashtin, v'nimtza echad misyachin ima erva. Maybe one of the 3, if you only had 2, one of them might have to go to the bathroom. He goes off into the forest somewhere, and now you only have 1 man with the woman now, and that's a problem of yichud. So you, when you're traveling, he says you need 3 because if anybody needs to go to the bathroom, you're going to be left with 1 less. So you need to have at least 2 left. Otherwise, it's going to be yichud. So you need 3 to start. Says the Gemara, name a misayele. Perhaps we can bring a proof again from the same brisa that we just quoted regarding the sota and her husband on the way to the Beis Hamikdash. It says there, Mosrim lo shnei talmidei chachamim shema yavo leha b'derech. You have to send along 2 talmidei chachamim lest the husband have relations with her. But that's trei v'iyu. That's 2 talmidei chachamim and the husband, ha tlasa. So then you have 3 altogether. So you see, otherwise why do we send 2 talmidei chachamim? Just send 1. And then you have the husband and talmid chacham. That's 2 men, and there shouldn't be a problem of yichud. Again, in this case, it's not like a normal husband because normally if the husband is there, the husband and wife, then there's no issue of yichud with anybody. Anybody else could be there. But here the husband's forbidden to his wife. So it's there's still a concern of yichud of the husband and the wife at this point. But we should still be able to count him, though. So if we have the husband and 1 other man, that's 2. So why do we need 2 talmidei chacham? Why do we need 3 people? It must be you need 3 when you're traveling. Says the Gemara, Hasam, there, no, it's a different reason. The reason we want 2 talmidei chacham there is that we want to be able to have witnesses in case the husband has relations with her, because once, if they were to have relations, like we said, the waters, the sota won't function. And if they're not going to work, then we don't want to erase Hashem's name. Part of the process of preparing the waters, the sota, was to write Hashem's name on our paper and erase it in the waters. But that's a big deal to erase Hashem's name. Generally, that's forbidden. So we would want to know in advance if we're wasting our time, so we wouldn't erase God's name for no reason. So therefore, we want to make sure that you have at least that you have Adam, you have witnesses along in case the husband would have relations with his wife, and then there would be no need to, then they could testify that happened, and then they wouldn't come to erase God's name on the paper in preparation to give the sota her drink. That's why we have 2, but we don't necessarily have a proof that you always need 3 while traveling. Mara says, Rav Rabbi Yehuda Abu Ka'asli Ba'orcha. One time, Rav and Rabbi Yehuda were traveling on the way. There was a woman walking ahead of them. Amarle Rav Rabbi Yehuda. Rav said to Rabbi Yehuda, Dal karech mikamei gehenim. He said, hurry your feet away from Gehenim. Meaning, let's speak up and get ahead of her and get away from her, so that we're not alone with her. Amarle. So Rabbi Yehuda said, but you, Rav, yourself said that 2 men, as long as they're ksherim, that's fine. So what is your concern if we would be walking along with her? We're 2 ksherim, and so what's your concern? So Amarle, so Rav said, but who says when I said ksherim, this idea that if they're ksherim, if they're kosher, if they're kosher people, it's okay. Who says it's like me and you? El Kiramai. So ask the Gemara, well, who do we mean? It says, Kigam Rabbi Chanina bar Papi v'chaverav. We mean those like Rabbi Chanina bar Papi and his cohort. Rashi says Rabbi Tzadok and Rav Kahana, mentioned earlier in the Masechta. So those, Rav says, those are the great people, those are the ksherim. But me and you, I don't know. I don't know if we count as ksherim. And therefore, Rav was concerned for him and Rabbi Yehuda to be alone with this woman on the way, and so he said, let's speed up and get away from her. Okay, we'll pick up from here next time.